Here we are again on Yonkers Voice, and our guest today is Corazon Pineda-Isaac, the councilwoman for the 2nd Precinct. Welcome to Yonkers Voice, Corazon.
Thank you, Ben. And it's for the 2nd Council District, not precinct. But
I'm sorry.
happy to be here.
I was supposed to have a meeting with the council, with the chief tomorrow. I was thinking about precinct.
That's what I figured.
Thank you. Thank you for the correction. Corazon, you are a pro in the Yonkers politics. People are re-electing you over and over. Normally that means they're happy with what they're getting, correct?
I mean, I think that elections are a testament to officials' approvals, although I don't see it as a, as a free-for-all to say that I'm doing a perfect job. I see it as an opportunity to continue serving and continue improving on everything that I've done. So where I'm grateful that I've been reelected, I don't feel that, I'm doing a perfect job and I am, the best thing since sliced bread. I just think that I'm someone who's working hard and doing the very best and hopes to continue to get the support of the people of the 2nd Council District.
Well, Corazon, I am one of those persons that believes that none of us are perfect. Regardless of which field we are, regardless if it's at home, friendship, community events, whatever, there is no such thing as perfection, okay? So we should, get that as a foundation. You're not perfect, neither am I, but you're trying to do the best that you can for the community that you represent. Would that be a fair statement?
Absolutely, of course.
And now, since you brought up imperfection, tell me a little bit about what you think that could be better, but it's not. Things in relationship to District 2, things that you could have been done and you were not able to because of whatever reasons, because we all know and understand that not everything depends on you. You are a part of a larger puzzle. There is things that maybe you want to do, but you need the support of others. And there is things that you intend to do, but you cannot do because of whatever. So let's talk about those things that you were not able to do, please.
That's actually a really important and a good question because it really allows us to do some critical thinking. So one of the things that I believe that still affects our district is, there's a big drug use still in the Northern Hill community area, and there's still crime that happens there. And I think that, that's one of the things that I hope that I can, my office could rid of. But unfortunately, it takes more than just a council person wanting for it to go away. It's a collaborative effort with YPD. It's a collaborative effort with our federal police and police organizations, and really just finding ways to tackle the drugs that are in our communities, the violence, and improving on that. I know crime has gone down significantly since, for years now. Yonkers is the safest city of its size. However, I do know that oftentimes when we say those comments, sometimes someone who lives in Northern Hill, who lives in Southwest Yonkers might think, how can that be? Because they don't feel that that statement, is factual when it comes to their backyard. So I want to continue to work to improve our communities, to make them safer. And part of the way that we do that is by doing supplemental things that combat crime, such as educational programs, community centers, after school programs, support services, investing in organizations like SNUG. And those are the things that I can control and that I hope to continue supporting as I continue in office.
Corazon, I'm glad that you brought that up. About the crime in our area. Lots of people comment on Yonkers Voice saying that crime in Yonkers is going up, it's going up, it's going up. Personally, I'm not so sure about that, okay? What I think it's happening is that the exposure of crime and other stuff, it's going up and up and up because of people like me. As soon as something happens, we're there to broadcast. So there is more exposure to things that happens on the street of Yonkers, not necessarily that those things are happening more and more and more. Would you agree with me?
Absolutely agree with you. Like I said, Yonkers is the safest city of its size. And but what it is happening now, not only people like you, but even people like the regular civilians, as soon as something happens, what do? We pull out a cell phone and we record. So now we see, throughout the city, throughout the state, throughout the world, more incidents are being recorded and are just being live streamed. And people are automatically seeing this information. It's like the news is currently on, even if, us constituents are the reporters. But yes, you also have, the more uprising of local bloggers and reporters that are like in our communities, that are ears close to the ground. You are everywhere. You often, get the information very fast, and you're there and you report on it and you provide that information to the people. But I think it's important because I think people still want to see it. And I think even though it could be creating a false narrative, I think people still have the right to know exactly what's happening. I like seeing, the comments in the Yonkers Voice, because it does give us a barometer about how people feel, right? You get to test the temperatures about the frustration people feel, about what, about how they, and it's important to know people feel like this is happening all the time, either so you can educate them, or so we as elected leaders could do something to change that.
Well, Corazon, I don't know about so much about the false narrative. Look, I remember years ago, before the bloggers like there was a false narrative. News 12, Files 1, they reported again, in favor to whatever the city hall, police department, or whatever wanted. They actually gave them the narrative and they would just put it out. Today, the narrative has changed. We show you the images and you formulate your opinion based on what you see. Now,
oh, I wasn't saying that you were creating a false narrative. I was saying that, like you mentioned, that because everything is posted, sometimes people can feel like crime is high at whole time high, even though it's not. It is. That's what I mean by the false narrative. Not that you're creating.
Now, we are doing a live stream, and as you know, there is people engaging. There is a comment now from Mr. Barry McGooey, the former president of Local 628. And this is what he says. Thank you, Councilwoman Pineda-Isaac, for fighting to make sure that the new firehouse was built near Chicken Island and keeping firefighters close to No Downhill in southwest of Yonkers. So thank you to you. That's what comes up from Barry McGooey.
Yeah, definitely. And I would love to, can I elaborate a little bit on why that's so important? And that is so important because our area, Southwest Yonkers, have the most populated areas in our city. We have the most buildings and structures and people in a high condensed area. Therefore, most of the fires are happening in Southwest Yonkers. They're not that often happening in single family detached homes. They mostly are happening in these small buildings that are, that are old structures that have a lot of illegal structures. And it's important that our firefighters are as close as can be to the area that most needs it. So it was a no-brainer for me to support that. And I thank the former president for highlighting that so that folks know, what are the things that we're bringing to their community and the importance of it, because it keeps them safe, it keeps our community safe, and it continues to invest in the areas that we live.
Now, this one comes from Lorraine Lopez. Speaking of No Downhill, can you tell us about any new initiatives on the Hill, such as what is West Hab is developing? And thank you for your service.
Thank you. So yes, so I'm excited because one of the things that I always wanted was another community center in Northern Hill. And I thought that was very important because I personally feel that the Northern Hill Community Center, although it is a great facility, I don't think it serves the people, the majority of the people in Northern Hill. So I felt that we need another community center to serve our families, to serve our children, to serve our students, to serve our local folks who are there, who either want to learn the language, who need a place to go where they're day laborers, who need access to childcare, after school programs. And West Hab is a great organization. So what I did is I partnered with West Hab. I was able to allocate $1 million for them, which acted as a seed investment for them to show the city is invested in us in this project. Therefore, West Hub was able to leverage that investment to get additional private fundraising to really build this community center. But it shows the commitment of the city. And with that, we're getting a brand new state-of-the-art community center. Every time I go there, I'm in so excitement. It's in all a brand new, it's gonna have a basketball court, computer rooms. It's gonna be ADA compliant so that it can serve all communities. They've expanded the amount of bathrooms that area has so that it could really serve communities. We're gonna bring in Neighbors Link, which works with day laborers and mothers and provides childcare for those looking to improve their communities, and many more programs. And then in addition to that, now next to it, we're building Day Spring Commons. And that's so important because that's going to serve families that were previously homeless. It's going to serve veterans, and it's going to be an open lottery. And these are affordable housing units, 100% affordable, that are brand new. And people are excited and they want to apply to it. These are the kind of investments that we need to make in Northern Hill, because little by little, that's how you transform communities. In addition to that, I'm bringing a food pantry to the Northern Hill Community Center. And that's going to be really great because, oftentimes people from Northern Hill have to travel either to San Andres or down the hill to different food pantries throughout the city, which are great and providing a great service. But, thanks to the support of people like Lorraine, of people like Feeding Westchester and different ministries, we're able to bring food pantries to Northern Hill to serve the community locally and very close. Well, I'm looking forward to that for that initiative to launch.
Now, Corazon, as you know, this is a live interviews and people are asking questions, and I do this for the people of Yonkers, so people can engage with our elected officials or those that are seeking election, elected positions. So not all questions are nice and sweet.
Some, I can imagine that they would be.
Exactly. So you've been doing this for a while. This is not your first rodeo, so you know how the things go. So this is the first question. You voted against term limits. Nevertheless, you are running for the third term. If the vote had gone according to what you wanted, you would not be able to run again, but you are. So if you are against term limits, why are you running for the third term?
Thank you, Van, and thank you to whoever asked that question. So when term limits came to the forefront, my biggest criticism of it was how it came about, was the amount of time that was provided to the public for the public to have public input. It was the fact that it didn't go on a public forum, so it didn't go on the ballot for voters to decide if they want this or not. And it was how fast it happened. So how fast it was introduced and voted on. So when I voted no, I didn't vote against the concept that elected officials should serve 12 years or 3 terms of 4 years. Instead, I voted against the procedure and the process in which it was done. Our legislators are in office for 12 years. They're 2-year terms, but they're in office for 12 years. And I think that it's a good amount of years, because I do agree that oftentimes, there's projects that take a lot of time from beginning to end. So I didn't necessarily disagree with the extension of term limits. I disagree with how it was brought to the people, and that's what I voted against. And if you go back to the tapes, that's what the record shows.
So now I'm glad that you made it clear. You were not against, term limits. You were against the way things were done, the procedure.
Absolutely, because I wanted to be able to really know if this is something that people wanted, and if this is something that people were in support of. And that's why I felt that it should go to the ballot box, and that the procedure either should have taken more time or should have gone straight to the ballot box.
Now, we have here a statement from Mr. Hector Santiago. This is what he says. I had an amazing conversation with Corazon Pineda regarding the safety in design, which will bring more lights in Northern Hill area. I am definitely looking forward to see our district lit up. Tell us about this.
So we spoke about, actually, I'm glad he mentioned that, because I would have forgotten to mention that when we were talking about crime. I talked about crime in Northern Hill. And one of the things that studies show is that crime usually happens in not well-lit areas, because criminals like to do transactions and back to violence in dark areas. So if I've allocated money to do a lighting study on Northern Hill so that we can determine what are the appropriate lights that we need to make Northern Hill bright and easy on the eye so that it deters crime. So we're starting with Elm Street. We're going to do a lighting study there and then determine how much money is going to cost us to renovate or redo all those lights so that we can have a nice bright street and then continue that process throughout the rest of Northern Hill.
Now, Corazon, let me remind you of something that actually I brought to your attention. You were going to work on it, but I don't think nothing ever happened about it. The people of St. Casimir also has a problem with lights. I brought this to your attention about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. You were actually at the scene with us and some residents of the area. You saw that there was no light. You got, I believe, a temporary light put in by where the old police headquarters used to be. You were going to work on the budget on the following budget season to get money allocated for that area, but nothing ever happens. The people are there still without lights, and it's 5 years later. But now you got involved in Elm Street or Northern Hill, and you were able to get lights. What's the difference between one place and the other? Those people in St. Casimir also have kids. They also have concern for safety. They're afraid to send their kids to the store at the corner because they don't know what might happen. What happened there?
So we put in those temporary lights that are actually very bright, and you were there, you remembered, you recorded it. And then from the information that I got from DPW is that light is sufficient to light up that area. It's a dead end. So really there was no other structure for us to really implement additional lights.
You build up the structures, Corazon. You build up the structures. You know, the fact that there is no structure does not mean you cannot build up some structures.
Correct, but it was very expensive to do so because it's just a dead end, and the amount of money that it would cost to implement those lights without any like power lines and Con Edison there. It literally, the lights that we put on, remember, we had to put an attachment to that light pole was there because there was no electricity there and it was non-functional. So what we have in place is something that, at least for that corner where you said the store is very bright there. And we added those lights, and I had to really push and fight for that. And then I continue to be in communication with the residents of St. Casimir, and they haven't since made any additional light complaints since those lights been implemented there. So have the complaints continue to come in, I think I would continue to revisit to find alternative options. But because they stopped, it gave me the impression that those lights were sufficient.
I can see it from your point of view. So guys, if you have a problem and you call your council person and talk about the problem, and they offer a resolution that you feel is not good enough, you need to call back. You need to follow up and say, whatever you did is not enough. We need you to look.
Absolutely. And there's some folks here that are from St. Casimir and that building that are watching. I encourage them to please call my office and let me know that the light is not working and that they still feel unsafe, and let's revisit it. Because one thing that like we mentioned earlier, perfection is not, something that I can say that it's within me. We make mistakes. So if we feel that the lights are not adequate, that they're inadequate, let's revisit and see what else we can do. Also for that area, one of the things that I think will also help probably with traffic and safety in that area is that the new stop center sharing community is going to be in St. Casimir in that area. So I think that added support services will most likely also create a safer environment there.
Now, let's move away from that now, and let's talk about record. I'm a strong proponent that people should vote based on record. Let's talk about your accomplishments, Corazon, things that you have done that has made your district better. Let's talk about those things.
Thank you. So one of the things that I'm a big supporter of and a big advocate is Yonkers Public Schools. So I'm proud to say that I have never voted for a budget that did not increase our school funding. because I understand that supporting our public schools and our students is one of my and our most important priorities. So that's one thing that I'm a big supporter and advocate for, the Yonkers Public Schools, funding our services, increasing our support services, and funding as much as possible, knowing that we have a lot of limitations and that our schools are historically underfunded. In addition to that, you might remember that I sponsored and passed legislation aimed to protect tenants and offer transparency on the history of rental properties. So we created this landlord registry so that folks have the history on a property that they seek to rent and can know what they're getting into before they actually rent it. And the reason for this is because, you know, I'm someone who is trying to buy a home, and I've been, you know, and I've been through the process for many years now. But I learned that when we buy a home, you know, you get to do an inspection. You get to know the home that, for the most part, that you're coming into, and if it, what kind of works it needs, and you know how many owners it's had, and when it was built. People who rent deserve that same opportunity. They need to know who their landlords are, how many violations, have they dealt with heat complaints in the past, rodent infestations, do the elevators work, are they a chronic violator? And that's what information that we want people to know. And that if they're a good landlord, then it's a place they should live in, and that it's a place that deserves their money. In addition to that, I also am working with my council to increase the affordable housing ordinance from 10 to 20%. So we're looking to increase the amount of set asides that are built when new development comes into the city. And we know that affordable housing is a big ticket item here in our city. There's not enough of it. Folks are, you know, living from paycheck to paycheck and really deserve quality places to live at affordable rates. And I know the word affordable can mean many different things, but at least right now, we're trying to increase those percentages from 10 to 20% to allow, you know, working families, nurses, teachers, and people that, you know, make average salaries to be able to, you know, live in quality homes. Like I said, we continue to work with organizations like West Tap so that we can bring more 100% affordable units to our communities. And, you know, it's creating a mix of those housing opportunities that are really going to benefit our communities. In addition to that, I also introduced to create an affordable housing registry. Why? Because oftentimes some people don't even know that we have an affordable housing ordinance. And when they do learn about it, they don't know where are these units. So I think it's important that we as a city, as a government, show people where are these units and where people can go to apply. And if all that information is in a centralized location, then it really we're doing our best job to be informative and to allow people to take advantage of these opportunities. So the goal of this registry is to make applying for these units accessible to the community that we're trying to serve. I'm also committed to helping young mothers and women of color with maternity support, and I've allocated funding to continue the Montefiore Nurse Family Program in Yonkers. And that program provides nurse visits to mothers from from birth to age 2. So what that does is it'll just provide a support service for a new mother or new family with a child, and provide that nurse visit so that they know they should be getting vaccines, they know what kind of childcare is appropriate. Yes.
I'm sorry, you know, I don't want to sound rude, but I'm sorry to interrupt you a little bit. But let's break down the things that you have done to make our community better in parts. That way, in between the subjects that you're saying, okay, we can ask you questions about it and the audience can engage, okay?
Oh, definitely.
So we talk about something, then we go into something else, we take questions about that, okay? So talking about the tenant registry database, I call it, for the lack of a better word, Landlord Registration Database.
Not that though.
Well, no, I'm talking about what I call it, not what you call it. You might call it something else. I call it that because I think that people should have the right to know who owns the building, how many violations are in that building, and how many things that landlord refuses to fix. And how do I do that? Instead of me going to the city hall when I'm looking for a place, perhaps the city hall or the council could help and put a notice by the front door of that house and say, this building has 50 or whatever violations. The same way that the city hall puts notices on the board saying that they are licensed to do this or they're licensed to do that, or this building is condemned, maybe they should put something that gives the person who's looking for an apartment a warning before they actually give in or give out the deposit for that apartment. What about that? Because that way you're protecting me. You're not appear to protect the landlord, because once I'm there and I have problems with heat, to hot water, or living conditions of maintenance, will be a little bit too late for me to file the complaint. Yeah, I can file the complaint, but that does not mean that anything is going to be fixed. But if it's before I actually give my deposit, I have an option to look for another building. What about that, Corazon?
I have to look into that only because sometimes, the mistake happens, right? And the folks get a violation. So if someone gets a violation and then you have it posted there, I think that I don't know if that tells the full story, right? So what we don't want to do is that if someone for some reason had in a moment in time a rodent infestation, but they took care of it or they're taking care of it, to have that just there without really showing the full picture,
That's
I don't know that
that's not what I said.
So then I'm a misunderstanding then what you
That's
said.
not what I said. I think common sense would tell me that if somebody gets one violation or two violations, that don't mean that the person is a slum landlord. But
Right.
if that landlord has 50 violations and
So you're saying the top offenders.
the top
That
offender,
assign,
correct.
okay.
You offended on the same violation more than 5 or 10 times. You have been given warnings to fix. You refuse to fix. Now you put a notice out for the people to know what's going on in that particular building.
That's interesting. Okay. Okay. I can't say like, yes, I'm going to do it, but I'm saying that that's very interesting. And I'm definitely going to start the research to see if something that we can do and it's feasible, because that's very interesting. And I don't hate it, because you're saying basically figure out which one are the top offenders. And if they're the top offending, that means they keep on they keep on offending. So let's just stick this on them until you get your act together. So,
Corazon, many times, well, as long as you hit them in a pocket, they feel there is no consequences.
Yeah.
When they have 50% of those apartments vacant because of the violations that they have, now they will start fixing the apartments. That's one of the things. Now, I have another question that came by text. They say, look, Councilwoman, you are a councilwoman, but you are also a county employee. And we are aware that you've been driving your city vehicle to your county job in White Plains. Now, I'm not saying that it is or it isn't, I don't know. I'm just asking the questions as they come in, and it's up to you to address it or don't address it. Is this true, not true? If it is, why?
it is. So, and I actually asked for, so it is true that I do work for the county, and it is also true that I drive my city-owned vehicle to the county when I go to work. And before doing so, I asked for legal guidance from Corporation Counsel to ask if that was proper. And the response that I received is that I am a councilwoman 24/7. Therefore, the car that is afforded to me is for my 24/7 use. And in the same way that when I worked in the city, I used to also drive my city vehicle into the city sometimes, is the same way that I could drive it to White Plains, because if I'm called at any minute to do something council related, I use my city car to handle that issue. If there was a fire in the middle of the day that I need to attend to, if there is a displacement that I need to attend to, I do so, and I get there in my city vehicle. Therefore, as per legal counsel, they said it's completely appropriate, especially because we have to state the amount of mileage that we use for personal and for personal use, and that gets deducted from our pay stubs. Therefore, I report any driving that I do that is not city related on a quarterly basis.
Now, this comment comes again from Mr. Barry McGooey. New York state laws need to be changed. Most slumlords own their properties through an LLC. it's almost impossible to find out who owns the LLC that owns that building. New York state laws must be changed to make landlords accountable. Well, I agree with Mr. McGooey, but if we put those signs at the door and no one rents those apartments because of the numerous violations in that particular building, maybe that will help the tenants and will force the landlords to fix the buildings that need to be fixed.
Absolutely. And that's one of the struggles that we have in going after certain landlords, because oftentimes you can't get a hold of them because the contact information is an LLC and we don't know how to reach them. So one of the things that we've done also moving forward is that all landlords need to the city report a person of contact to the city, so that the city, the Department of Buildings has someone to contact in the case of an emergency and things like that. So one of the things that we've done when we do our landlord reform legislation. However, there are many in the past that still have not updated that information that we're still looking to get. But I agree with Mr. McGoey.
So right as of it stands right now, if I go to building A located on 175 Elm Street, just as an example, I don't mean that just as an example, and I want to know the history of that building, how many violations, how many outstanding violations for how many years. If I call City Hall and say, look, I'm trying to rent an apartment in this building and I need the history, will somebody be able to give me the history of that building?
Yeah, definitely. If you call the Department of Buildings, there's no reason why they cannot give you that information. And even further than that, I would say that if you live in my district and you want to know the history of an apartment, give me a call and I will do anything in my power to make sure that you have that information.
You heard from the councilwoman.
Absolutely.
If you have a question, you don't get an answer from the building department, call the councilwoman's office. Now, Corazon, what is there? Because I see that you've been working about a lot of things, schools, buildings, housing. What's more is at the top of your list? What have you done in the in the 2 terms that you were not able to, that you think a 3rd term will help you? What is in your priority list?
So, like I mentioned, we still need to do more with our public schools. So we need to find ways to fund our schools, because we need more arts and music in our schools. We need more guidance counselors. We need more librarians. We need more support services. So that's something that's ongoing, and it's a big hurdle and it's a big struggle, but it's something that I will never stop working towards. I think that also we need to continue to invest in our infrastructure. That is ongoing. So for example, last budget, we did $950,000 for road resurfacing, but we know that those are works that we have to continue doing. So I think that work will continue, because I know there are many people that still have complaints about how their streets are and how we could make it better. So I think continue to invest in that infrastructure is absolutely important. I think that we can still continue to improve our parks, and that's something that I also look forward to, putting more money in the budget for continuous improvements in our parks. And and I think that I want to continue to expand the relationship that I have with constituents, so that they also bring things to me that are valuable and important to them. The best way for me to do my job is when I hear directly from constituents that tell me this is happening, this is what we need. Like when the resident of St. Casimir spoke up and said, we need lighting here, and we got that light. Like, when some residents in Northern Hill said, we would like some adult workout equipment in one of the parks in Northern Hill, they advocated for that and we got that done. So things like that continue to help me be a better elected official and improve our communities. Because what needs improvement to me also could be very different to many others who live in the area. So we should all have a say as to what we think those improvements are.
Now, Corazon, I interviewed you about this, and it was here on my list, but somebody just anticipated me and asked the question. And this is the essence of this question. You are a majority leader. Democrats control the majority. why are you creating the optical illusion that you tend to incline more with the Republican line than actually the Democratic line? You were appointed to very two important positions, budget and finance, to Mr. Morante, who is a Republican, and you appointed real estate chair committee to John Rubel. I believe John Rubel was a Democrat when you appointed, but he was just turned Democrat. So he was still very much in line with the Republicans. Since we have a majority Democrat, why not give the Democrat those two very important positions? Why create the illusion that you are inclined, or put the questions on people's mind? Why did she do it? What is for her to gain?
Yes, definitely. And I agree. I love that you use the word illusion, because exactly what it is. It's an illusion that I am, I lean with the Republicans. Why? Because I on the council have the longest and strongest Democratic record. And you could just go to my legislations and the things that I've introduced and voted on. So for proof of that, but I won't go into that. So the budget committee, Councilman Morency, who is a Republican, is also a certified financial accountant, CPA. And in doing the budget, he expressed, wanting to use his expertise and his years of service in accounting and in finance to really lead the budget committee. He was the only one who expressed interest, and he was very excited to do so. And I think that, as positions as leaders, I think it's important for us, even when we have colleagues in opposing parties, that we still, find ways to work together and to provide opportunities. Given that, though, I understood that we do have a majority. So if at any point Morency seemed to be detrimental or obtrusive or want to obstruct anything, we have the votes to move anything in whatever way we want. So there's nothing so him being the chairman of the committee does not control how, we decide to move this agenda, because at the end of the day, Democrats control the votes, and we continue to move the agenda into how we proceed with the city council's mission. John Rubel is the chair of real estate. And, John Rubel, you're right. He recently turned Democrat. And I was cautious when he turned Democrat. And I expressed to him, why I was cautious. But also, I'm someone who provides opportunities, who believes in chances, who believes in being a person with open arms. And John Rubel also, expressed his desire to be the real estate chair, and why, and also his desire to thoughtfully work through an affordable housing ordinance, and his desire to talk about development and talk through development in the city. And he provided the best case as to why he should be real estate chair. And I also wanted to give him the opportunity. And I think that in both cases, we've done a fair, it's been a fair decision. Morency as budget chair, we passed the budget that Democrats supported. And as real estate chair, we continue to put forth legislations that have to do with development, to move an affordable housing ordinance. And regardless, there are votes there that can move any item out of committee should the Democrats decide to do so.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that moving out of committee as soon as the Democrats think it's best. You just said that you are in favor of the 20% in housing, correct? We have spoken to Shanae, she is, Tasha is, the council president is. So we have the majority right there. Why is this still in committee?
Well, like any legislation, it takes thoughtful process. We were having a committee meeting on it. We wanted to hear from some folks that are conducting a study, but actually we as a caucus have, a meeting today where we're discussing, when are we going to bring this out? And I'm in belief that this is going to very soon be voted on, like literally very, very soon.
Now I have here, give me 1 second. I have a question from Lorraine, if I can find the question. Well, I will look and then we come back to it. What about other things? In regards to education, Corazon, You are a very young woman. I am a few years older than you, but I can, yeah, only a few, only 5. But I can tell you, Corazon, that probably you were still a toddler or going to grammar school, and Yonkers already had the problem that we have today in regards to the budget, education, and funds. And the same song that we hear today, no, I'm not calling what you tell me it's a song, but the same argument, uh, formula. It's the same thing that we've been here for 25, 30 years. And is not changing. Next year, we will still talk about the formula. What do we need to change it? We need action, not words. What must happen for this formula to be changed, for us to be able to give the kids of Yonkers a better education system? What is it?
A very difficult question because the formula can only be changed through New York State. You know, I'm a local representative, so we continue, and you're right, it's a song that we sing on an annual basis. And right now, the only thing I can continue to do is continue taking choir classes and sing the song and sing it loud and advocate for our children. But then also, in addition to that, you know, take on the responsibility that as a local official, I have to push the envelope to do as much as we can as a city, right? So we cannot just leave it up to New York State to you know, to eventually change the formula. We, once it comes before us every year, once we realize the formula has not changed, then it's like, what are we doing? Which is why every year I push for, you know, whatever is introduced to the Board of Education budget, let's do more. Let's go above that. And that's just my mission. And that's as much as a councilwoman I feel that I can do, is that when you know, when we get to budget season and X amount is proposed for the Board of Ed, my mission is always to push it as much as we can and say, no, let's do more. Let's invest, you know, X amount of millions more. Let's do it for this reason. Let's invest in another guidance counselor. Let's invest in music. Let's invest in that. And that's as much as a councilwoman and my responsibility that I can do. But we have to continue to work with our state legislators, with our New York State officials to say, you know, Yonkers is historically underfunded. The formula does not work in our best interest and we need more money.
Now, before we go into another topic, let me just end this segment with this question. When Senator Andrea Stewart Cousin and Senator Shelley Meyer were elected, one of the things that we voted on them for was to change and help the education system. Things are still the same. And they've been in that position for a while. What is the holdback? We expected them to fulfill that promise and change things. The people of Yonkers, especially people of Yonkers, needs a change on the education formula. What have they done? And I ask you this question, not because you have a direct involvement, but because you're also a mother who have a little boy in school or going to school too. 2 little guys going to Yonkers Public School, correct? So, and I'm sure that when this formula changes, your kids, my friends' kids will benefit from it. What is taking so long for those 2 powerful women to change what needs to be changed and fulfill the promises that they made before they were elected?
I think those are questions that should be posed directly to our state legislatures. I think that, you know, we haven't been in the majority for that long. So I do think that, as we know, unfortunately, government doesn't move as quickly as we'd like it to. So I have faith and hope in our state legislators because I know that they want the best for our students. I know that they want the best for our communities. And I do believe that more is coming. I do believe that we're going to continue to invest in our communities, invest in our schools, and continue to do better for our communities. I think any questions, you know, above that should be asked directly to the women that represent us and the men that represent us on the state level, so they could talk through line by line the things that they have done for the Yonkers Public Schools.
Well, and again, let me make sure that people understand. I'm not talking bad about either one of those ladies. I think that they want to do the best, you know, for our city, our state. I'm just asking, why is the delay? What is stopping things from moving forward? Now, Lorraine Lopez asks a question, and let me tell you, when Lorraine Lopez phrases a question like that, I get nervous, okay? And this is how she started. Forgive me. When she says forgive me, okay, that means something on itself, okay? Forgive me if I don't know exact details. Did you put in a proposal for initiative that gave council members $100,000 that they could allocate via community board? Can you elaborate and tell us what she's talking about?
I think if I understand correctly, I recently introduced a resolution that asks for participatory budgeting. So what does that mean? In New York City, they have participatory budgeting, and what it is it allows people from the community directly to decide what certain monies allocated will go towards. So I thought that was a great initiative, and that we should bring that to our city. So I figured let's start with, in a sense, small amount, so $100,000 for each district, and the council president would put $20,000 each in each district, so 120 for each district. And basically we would create a system, and we still have to work that out, but where the community, so let's say second council district gets $120,000 in capital budget, and we go out to the district and we say, what do you guys want me to do with that $120,000? And the reason for that is because I want people to be more engaged in the budget process. I want folks to be more excited, to be more willing to participate. And I figured if we gave them direct access and the direct decision making, that hopefully we can increase the amount of support and input that we're getting from community members. And that's just the goal that I'm hoping to get from participatory budgeting, so that people directly decide what certain monies are used for in their own neighborhoods, and give people a real say in our budget process.
Now, Corazon, there is a hot talk going on social media.
Hot talk.
Hot talk. A lot of conversation, back and forth, about Yonkers Arts. Yonkers Arts received a grant of $100,000 to beautify Yonkers, beautify some projects. The conversation is, instead of spending $100,000 painting some walls, what about feeding or buying food, Chrome laptops for the children, or just open the bid for all artists in Yonkers instead of giving to one particular artist? Now, I'm not involved in that conversation, but lots of those artists that they are talking about belong to your district. What is your take on that? Do you know what's going on?
So I saw, again, some rumblings on the online, and I'm also very cautious about online chatter, only because, you have to really figure out what's factual and what's chatter and what's not. So I do know that there has been some funding allocated to Yonkers Arts, which is a great organization that does a lot of work with the arts. I think that if there are other organizations that want more support and want more of an opportunity, I'm always happy to be with those organizations if they feel that they somehow, will not be able to take part in what the monies that Yonkers Arts received. And I'm interested in hearing on those artists, those organizations, and then me personally finding ways in which we can support them. There are many other ways in which we can support artists and nonprofits. We allocate millions of dollars in CDBG funding. So when there are organizations that are nonprofits that say, hey, we're doing this work, we would like more support, I'm always excited to meet with them, excited to learn more, and excited to advocate them so they can get CDBG funding. So if there are artists in my district that feel that they would like also access to funding, access to create certain things because they have initiatives, then I encourage them to call me, to sit down with me, and let's talk through it. And let me connect you to our planning department. Let me teach you about the CDBG process, and let's find ways for you too to get funding.
Well, I interviewed Ray Wilcox the other day at his studio, the studio that they have on Neperham. I spoke with him. I think there is wonderful things going. And I given up on pleasing everyone all the time. There will always be a group of people that will talk in favor and a group of people that will talk against it. That's life, regardless. So I wish him the best. I wish all the artists in Yonkers the best. And if you are an artist, Yonkers is the place to be.
Sure is.
Yonkers is the place to be. What about crime in Yonkers? You know, we've been hearing about a lot of crime. Okay, we already spoke about the exposure, not that necessarily the numbers are going up, but we are seeing a lot of crime. Yesterday or the day before, there was a shooting in Gary Square in your district.
Yonkers is not my district, but it's Southwest Yonkers. We can talk about it.
Close enough, but still our city. The day before, there was another. Then that same night, there was another. We don't know exactly all the details, but it involved a gun. What are we doing about it? You know, I have spoken with the commissioner many times about this thing, crime, especially involving young men and young women. And he says, Ru, this in part is due to the bail reform. We arrest them today and you give them a few days and they will be on the street being rearrested for exactly the same thing. What is your take in that? Because this crime affects people from your district, my district, everywhere in Yonkers, especially Southwest.
Yeah. So I think that we could continue to work with our Yonkers Police Department to make sure that we are providing, quality of life environments for our people. One of the things that we as a city have done is, the 5th precinct that's going to be right in Getty Square.
Correction. It's the 4th annex. It's not the precinct.
Right. 4th. Yeah, you're right. Thank you for.
Because people are going to be calling you. What do you mean 5th precinct? You know?
No, you're right. I kept calling that in my head, but you're absolutely right. I should use the correct language so that doesn't create confusion. No, but the 4th annex, and then that's going to be so important because, like I said, it's going to provide additional supports to areas like Getty Square that are high in traffic, that are high in, is a big commuter area, and we're a lot of, we have a large homeless population there. So I think doing things, local initiatives like that, the things that we can control are the ways that we as a city, we combat crime. And those are the things that I will continue to support and advocate and work closely with our precincts and, attend our community council precinct meetings so that we can hear from people and directly communicate with the things that they're seeing in their communities and how we can make it better.
But, Corazon, what we're seeing is directly related to bail reform. And I think that is a little bit above your job specification or police department. The police department does not make laws. They only enforce the laws. And those laws that we are talking about are made by somebody else. So maybe we need a meeting between council people, police department, not just in Yonkers. I'm talking about maybe Westchester County, New York State, to say whatever you guys doing is not the right way. I understand we need the bail reform, but it needs to be tweaked so we don't keep arresting the same people over and over for the same crime.
I'd be very interested to hear the actual data surrounding bail reform and how it correlates to Yonkers, and then from there start a conversation to see what, if any, alternative decisions need to be made or conversations to address that.
Homeless. Let's move to homeless. Homeless issue in Yonkers. It's very heavy. We see homeless people everywhere on the street, and not necessarily because they don't have jobs. Many of them work. They just cannot afford to live in Yonkers. We see new buildings. Yonkers has been beautified. It's becoming a beautiful city for people that live in New York City that wants to move to Yonkers. But for those that are living in Yonkers, it's not becoming a pretty city if I cannot live in my city. A lot of those apartments being built up on riverfront are studio and 1-bedroom apartments. People from Yonkers, they have families. So those apartments are not for them, are for somebody else. What are you doing? When I say you, council, or what you propose to do to resolve that issue?
So homelessness is an issue that falls under the purview of the county. However, I think that there are still things that locally we can do. So as a council member, things that I feel that combat homelessness is by supporting the organizations that work with the homeless community. So my mission is that I'm going to continue to allocate funding for organizations like the YWCA, the YMCA, our church institutions, our religious institutions, Catholic charities, SCORES, WestHap, those institutions that are doing the work, that are already providing services, that are already providing shelter, that are already providing programming and continuing education for those people. I think that's how we as city officials help combat the complex conversation around homelessness. And I think then working also with our county officials, we can continue to move the conversation forward to improve things. And, for example, the on the zoning board of agenda, the zoning agenda committee, upcoming on the agenda is going to be an approval for the use of the St. Casimir property as the new sharing community. So as a city, we have to make sure that that item moves forward, that we provide, again, support services for Kingdom Christian, I can't remember the full name, Yonkers Christian Assembly, Hassel, Reverend Hassel, his church, who is now going to be the lead organization that's going to be housing the homeless. So I think that's, as a city, how we support those organizations that are doing the work and work with the county government to make sure that things are moving in the correct way.
Well, I don't know if I would agree completely in everything that you said. If not every homeless issue is a county issue, if I'm in Yonkers and I work in Yonkers, but I cannot live in Yonkers because the rents are too high in Yonkers, that's not a county issue, that's a Yonkers issue.
Absolutely, it's a housing issue. And like earlier I talked about, one of the things that we're doing is, trying to create more 100% affordable units. Also, increasing the affordable housing ordinance for 10 to 20%. Housing is a county-wide issue. It's not under the county jurisdiction. I'm saying it's an issue throughout our county. So it's also something it's very complex. So every little bit that we do, creating the registry so people know where the units are, increasing the amount of units, supporting organizations like WestHap and others that provide 100% affordable units, are the ways that we move forward in creating more opportunities for people. Absolutely. So things like that. And then again, like I said, supporting those nonprofits that offer support services for the homeless, making sure that they have the money that they need to continue these services, is how we invest and support the homeless population.
Corazon, how often do you go around your district to speak with the people that live in your district? Or do you expect them to call you?
No, not always. Very often. Yeah, right. No, I didn't mean it in a thing. I meant absolutely. That's so important. Quarterly meetings are something that I often do throughout my tenure. I don't wait for election season to meet with people and to visit folks. During the pandemic also is, another time where, we rolled up our sleeves and we really went into communities and we did, personal, either hot food distribution deliveries or grocery food distributions and PPE. It's so important that we're constantly in our communities with our ear close to the ground so that we know what's going on. Just recently, someone called me about, a family that was without power because of the outage, who was in need of, some groceries. And, those are things that I don't have to necessarily, announce in the status, but we pick up and we go right away and we make those deliveries. And the reason that those calls come directly is because we've had such close relationship with people in the community so that they know that, for certain emergencies, they can call us right away. And we've built those relationships by going to the community often and communicating frequently and knowing what's going on in our districts as much as we're able.
Now, COVID-19, finally, we are getting a center here in Southwest Yonkers for the vaccination. I believe there was one in Odine Hill, correct?
There was a pop-up in Odine Hill Community Center for the Municipal Housing Authority senior residents.
Okay. Now, there is a flyer going out there. The flyer was issued by Senator Andrea Stewart-Cousin that says that starting on Wednesday, 2/24 at 8 a.m., vaccinations here by the PAL. Well, we've been making that announcement and we are been getting feedbacks from people that have tried to call the number. It says, book appointment on state website, newyork.gov/vaccine, or vaccination hotline 1-833-697-4829. Folks been calling. I called. And
it says the 24th you can start. Today's the 23rd.
well,
therefore, you can't call yet.
Well, then maybe the language. It says starting on Wednesday 2/24.
Right, starting on Wednesday, you can pre-register.
You can pre-register. Okay, I guess people are confusing, thinking that you start the vaccination on the 24th.
You can pre-register on the 24th. So what they did was they opened, the facility is going to open March 3rd, but they've opened the registration for certain districts, so communities like ours, so that we can pre-register first before they open it to the whole county. Well, that's what you can do. So starting tomorrow, you can call and click on the link and begin to pre-register for appointments to get vaccinated.
I am glad I asked the question because I was a little confused. So now, guys, you understand. Starting tomorrow, you can call to register for the upcoming vaccines, okay? You cannot call now. You know, those are people are answering the phone. They don't have all the information. But as of tomorrow, the 24th at 8 a.m., you can start calling and register for the vaccine. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. What else, Corazon? This is your time to talk to the people. Tell me, why should I vote for Corazon? If I'm thinking, I'm undecided, should I vote for Corazon that has been there for 2 terms, a woman with experience, or should I vote for somebody that's just trying to get into the political field? Does experience matters, counts? Should we give this to another person to try something else? Tell me, convince me, tell me why should I vote for you, Corazon?
Thank you, Ben, for the opportunity and the platform. And, I personally believe that that experience does matter. Experience matters when it's used the correct way. So I believe that I've been someone who has had an open door policy. Many know that when you call my office, you get a response, you get follow up, and we do everything in our power to help you with the issue. And when we don't have the answers, we're at least honest and let you know that we don't have the answers, but that we will find them. So my experience has led me to create actual impacts in our community. The experience allowed for the renovation of the New Rand Hill Community Center. It allowed for the road resurfacing that has improved our roads. It allowed for programs like the nurse practitioner programs. That experience has introduced, sponsored, co-sponsored, and approved budgets and legislations that are benefit our communities as we speak. And this experience, as well as the willingness to continue to learn, to continue to adapt, to continue to accept when I've made mistakes, is an experience that's continued to, I think, move our district forward. I know that there's more to do. I know that we are in a time where it's very problematic and we don't know, and it's very uncertain with the pandemic, but I'm proud that, during the pandemic, we joined the fight against food insecurity that affected so many in the Second Council District. So many people were without jobs, were without knowing where their next meal will come from, and we joined that fight. And I will continue to join any fight and every fight that comes our way as I fight for the people of the Second District, for the mothers, for the fathers, for the students, for the teachers, for the day laborers, for our immigrant community, for our Black and brown people. And that's just the kind of elected officials you want. Someone that when you call answers, someone that is passionate about the work. I love what I do. I am so grateful that I embarked on this journey. And I believe that is the best thing that I could have done as an elected official, because it's helped me grow as a person. It's gave me, such an insight on people and communities. I think it's even shaped who I am as a mother. So I think that, as we move forward, I ask for folks to put faith in me as we continue to grow our communities, as we continue to work together. And obviously, I leave it up to the people to decide. And I know that, they'll thoughtfully make that choice. And whatever this decision that they make, I will respect, and I will still love them for it, because the Second Council District has given me so much as far as personal growth, as far as experiences, as far as people that I've gotten to know. And it's just, for me to be an honor and a pleasure to continue serving the people of my area.
So,
And I thank you, Ben.
so Corazon, if it happens that you do not win the re-election, will you peacefully concede and transfer a smooth, of power to the next?
Absolutely, absolutely. We've been talking about peaceful transitions of power and conceding for such a long time that it'd be ridiculous for me to not offer the same thing. No, elections are very clear. I believe in our election systems. So, I definitely will accept the results that the people decide on. But I also have faith that the work that we've done will speak for itself. The relationship that we've built, the support that we've offered, I think that people will embrace. And I look forward to a healthy campaign. I look forward to to continue to share my platform, to continue to share future goals, and to continue to receive criticism and ideas. Like I came here and I'm leaving here with something for me to go back and study and look into, which is those slumlords. Let's post that sign big and strong. And that's something that's such a learning experience for me, because it happens all the time through talking to people. Many of the things that we put forth came through conversations with community members, which is why they're so important and they're so valuable. So I thank you, Ben, for the opportunity. I thank Yonkers Voice. I think the people that are watching, and I really do when I mean it, when I say, please call me if you have an issue, if you have a question, if you just want to talk and learn more. I really do have an open door policy, and it really is an honor for me to serve and represent the people of the Second Council.
Not quite done yet. We have one more question. So I have.
Okay, good. We'll take one more question, but I have meetings after.
I can have your word that we will not have a stop the steal in Yonkers.
We will not have a stop the steal in Yonkers. No.
This is one last question, and then we conclude. Yeah. Can you share with everyone your thoughts on the topic of people with disabilities in the community in continuing to help and meet their needs? This question comes from Caroline Conklin.
Okay. So she wants to know how do we continue to support people with disabilities?
She wants to know what you think, your thoughts on the topic of people with disabilities in the community in continuing to help and meet their needs.
Oh, thank you. And many of us know Carolyn very well, because she is a huge advocate for folks with disabilities and is a huge fighter in that fight. And I joined her in that fight because when we talk about equality, and we have to talk about it on a broad spectrum. It's not just race, it's not just gender. It's also disabilities and making sure that places are accessible to people. City Hall has to be accessible. These new properties that are built have to be accessible. The anything that we put forth we have to think about that community and how we make sure that they also have access to it. So the Office of Disability. Disabled on the Move, it's a real organization that provides that support to those people and continues to educate us on what we can do to better support that community. So I think for me, it's about continuing to support organizations like Disabled on the Move and making sure that our buildings are up to code for folks who are disabled, that our missions continue to include people who are disabled, and that we continue to learn more and educate ourselves on how we can make things better, easier, and more accessible to all of those in our communities.
Well, Corazon, thank you. And let me conclude this interview with making clear that Yonkers Voice does not endorse or support any candidate. The only reason we do this is to inform you so you can make an educated and informed decision on who deserves your vote. If you are a candidate or if you are seeking an elected position and wants to be on our platform to tell the people what you stand for, please reach out to us. yv.support@yonkersvoice.com. Thank you, Corazon. Until next time.
Ben, bye-bye.